I got a message. As a guy who spent 34 years deporting illegal aliens, I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law. You better start packing now. You're damn right. Because you're going home. I got another message to the criminal cartels in Mexico. You smuggled enough fentanyl across this country to kill 148,000 young Americans. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
Three different options presented. The third included the option for family separation. This initiative would pursue prosecution of all amenable adults, including those presenting with a family unit. Mr. Homan, your name is on this. Is this correct?
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation policy?
I am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo?
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation?
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in a car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father from his family.
Mr. Homan, with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the memo is...
You were saying that. I wish somebody in Democratic leadership would say that out loud. Look, you want to know why there's 50,000 people in detention? You want to know why we have 1 million illegal entries in the United States? You want to know why we have these issues? Because you have failed to secure the border. You have failed to work with this president to close the 3 loopholes we've asked for 2 years to close. So if you want to know why this issue exists, you need to look in the mirror. You have failed American people for not securing the border and closing loopholes.
Mr. Homan, please respect the chair and the authority of the chair. The time of the gentleman has expired.
I've asked you politely to let me go beyond my time, and you let other people go beyond their time, but not to Tom Homan. He don't get me go beyond his time.
Mr. Homan, we have approved an agreement between the Republicans and the Democrats with the ranking member. We increased the time of one member of Congress who was interrupted by a protest. That is done with the approval of the ranking member. Please respect the chair's authority.
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me. I want to add one more thing. You talk about the child sex crimes. Under Kamala Harris, we have over 500,000 children have been smuggled into the United States, separated from their families, smuggled by criminal cartels, and released in the United States. That's your failure as a Border Czar. And let me add this. They've released these people to so-called sponsors. They don't vet properly. Now they can't find 148,000 children or their sponsors, and I guarantee you, based on my 3.5 decades of investigative experience, these children are in forced labor, or they're in forced sex trade, and they're living a life of hell. This administration, what they've done on the border is disgusting. I started my career in immigration enforcement in 1984 as a Border Patrol agent. I've worked for 6 presidents, up to Donald Trump. Every president I've ever worked for took some steps to secure the border, because they understood you can't have strong national security if you don't have border security. But President Biden is the first president in the history of this nation that I know of who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose. And even President Obama gave me the Presidential Rank Award, highest award available, because what was I doing at the time? I was locating and deporting people that are in the country illegally. So we went for the most secure border of my lifetime, and it's not just my opinion. I've done this for 34 years. Anybody can go to cbp.gov and look at the data. We handed this administration the most secure border in my lifetime. And within months, we went from the most secure border to historic illegal immigration, numbers we've never seen before. And it's not because it's seasonal. It's not because of climate change. It's not because of Trump. This is by design. We already heard about some of these people are coming because of economic reason or natural disasters. The bottom line is, when you claim asylum, you must be escaping fear and persecution from your home government because of your race, religion, political affiliation, or membership in a particular social group. That is not the fact. If you look at immigration court data over the last 10 years, you'll see that nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts that simply don't qualify. But they're coming and staying because of Biden's promises. I wrote an op-ed 6 months before the election. I said, if President Biden becomes president, we'll lose the border, based on the promises he was making during the campaign. And he's kept those promises. Right now, we have record numbers of illegal aliens coming across the border. Catch and release is rampant. Right now, Secretary Mayorkas already said 85% of everybody coming to the border is being released in the country. They're not being detained. And why are they being detained? Because of two reasons. Number one, because he knows, like I do, that vast majority of these people will be ordered removed 5, 6, 7 years down the road, maybe 10. He also knows the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report says if you get an order removal and you're in an ice bed, you get removed 99% of the time. But if you're not in detention, your chances of being removed are slim. If you're a family unit, it's about 6%. That's why they're releasing them. Thousands of empty ice beds sitting there right now, already paid for by the taxpayer. They'd rather release them because they know the vast majority will lose their case and they'll be ordered removed, but if they're not in detention, they won't be removed. So this administration comes up with what they call lawful pathways, which I think are illegal, and I think they'll lose when the decision of the courts come out. The CBP One app, 95.8% are approved. Where's the case-by-case analysis that is supposed to be done for people for a parole? It's not being done. It's a shell game. They move people, they move thousands to the port of entry so they can claim less illegal entries between the port of entries, but it's failed because November, December, we saw record amounts of crossings on the border, over 300,000 just in December. And people who say that the border is not in crisis, I tell you this, in 2020, the total encounters on the southwest border is 646,000. This year, 3.2 million, 5 times what we saw during last year's Trump administration. Court orders are years out, but this administration is counting on it. You overflow the system. It'll push these court dates back 7, 8 years. And what's going to happen? Mark my word. When they finally get order removal 7 years down the road, they'll have a USC child. They'll have 2 USC children. They'll get phone calls from, the director of ICE will get phone calls from the Hill saying, why'd you remove that person with 2 USC kids? Well, you didn't have 2 USC kids when he entered the country legally. So now that he has 2 USC kids, he's immune from the law. The court order means nothing. So here's what I'm looking for. If for people who demand these people have a right to claim asylum, they have a right to due process. I agree. But due process doesn't mean anything if the final decision of the courts is not executed and people aren't removed. So if it takes 5 or 6 years, they still must be removed, or the system means nothing. I've been attacked numerous times because I worked with President Trump. They said our policy is inhumane. I've been called a racist and a bigot by members of Congress. Well, let's get one thing straight. Under President Trump, illegal immigration went to a 40, 45-year low, 83% decline in illegal immigration. There's been several studies saying 31% of women that make that journey through cartels get sexually assaulted. So let me ask you a question. I'll make a point. When 83% less people are coming, how many migrants didn't die crossing the border when 83% less were coming? How many people didn't die? How many people out of the terrorist screening database didn't try to come to the country because Border Patrol was 100% vigilant on the line and now overwhelmed? How many women and children didn't get sex trafficking to the United States, forced into sex slavery, forced labor, debt bondage? How many billions did the criminal cartels not make? Under President Biden, where they call this humane, over 1,700 migrants have died on U.S. soil. Historic record, not counting the Darien Gap in Mexico and Central America. 112,000 Americans dying from fentanyl. Historical increase in sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. Almost 100,000 missing kids that were released by ORR. 440,000 unaccompanied children entered the country through the service of the cartels. Someone needs to explain to me how that's humane, any of this stuff. And a record number of people off the terrorist watch list being arrested. 1.9 million gotaways. That statement alone should convince anybody on either side, 1.9 million gotaways, the border is not secure. It's ridiculous to claim so. Everybody, I met a lot of people today said, why do I see you on Fox News, you're always so emotional, and I see you screaming at Congress, because I wake up every day pissed off. I wake up every day pissed off because we gave this administration the most secure border in my lifetime. And the data proves it. Illegal immigration was down 83 to 90%. A record. No one's ever accomplished that. Illegal immigration was down a 45-year low. Now, you heard my video. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president I've ever worked for said they took actions to try to secure the border. Even Clinton and Obama took actions to secure the border. No one did more than President Trump. But President Biden is the first president in the history of this nation who came in office and unsecured a border. And that pisses me off. Because when you unsecure the border, people die. Now, I see the White House moron, the spokesperson, and Jen Psaki before her, they'll say, the Trump administration's inhumane policies. You guys, you're inhumane, you're racist. And our policy is much more humane. That's a bunch of bullshit. Because let me tell you the truth. Under President Trump, Doctors Without Borders did a study. They said 31% of women that make that journey get sexually assaulted. Now, I've talked to girls as young as 9 years old when I was a special agent that was raped multiple times by the criminal cartels in Mexico. They're animals. And when you sit down and talk to a 9-year-old little girl and look in her eyes, and every bit of humanity has been stolen from her, everything innocent, it breaks your heart. And it pisses me off because when President Trump had illegal immigration down 83% to 90%, depending on what time frame you looked at, how many women were being raped? How many children were dying? How many pounds of fentanyl didn't make it in the country to kill Americans? How many known suspected terrorists didn't get in the country because our border was secure? President Trump's policies were not inhumane. They saved lives. President Biden wants to say the policies are more humane. Let me set the record straight. Over 1,700 migrants have died on U.S. soil since Joe Biden's been president. 1,700 migrants have died on U.S. soil. A record. Over 100,000 Americans have died from fentanyl overdoses. A record. ICE has more sex trafficking investigations of women and children this year than the last 6 years combined. A record number of women and children being sex trafficked. And the thing that bothers me the most, on top of all those terrible things, a record number of known suspected terrorists have been arrested trying to enter this country. Don't tell me his policy is humane. They're killing people at record numbers. They're killing migrants at record numbers. They're killing Americans at record numbers. Bottom line. President Trump was one badass president. Hello, I'm Tom Homan from Border 911. You know, I wake up every morning pissed off on what this administration has done to our national security, to our southern border. When I worked for the Trump administration, we handed this administration the most secure border of my lifetime. They unsecure this border on purpose. What commander-in-chief does that to the nation? It has resulted in a record number of Americans dying from fentanyl, over 112,000. A record number of women and children being sex trafficked into the United States. This is devastating to America. We can't have national security without border security. The Border 911 team, who is experts, the most profound experts in the world when it comes to border security, are going to spend the next year educating the American people on why border security matters. It's a national security threat, it's a public safety threat, it's a public health threat. When President Trump walks back in the Oval Office in January of 2025, we'll lock this border down in 120 days.
Talk about this now. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was out stumping for Bernie Sanders in Iowa. Let's take a listen to what she had to say on Saturday.
Organize organizing is about tipping people off if you start to see that ICE and CBP are in communities to try to keep people safe. I'm here because Senator Sanders has actually committed to breaking up ICE and CBP.
Tom, your thoughts on that statement?
It's ridiculous. It's an extremely stupid statement made by somebody I never consider real smart anyways. But here's the elected lawmaker. She's a congresswoman standing on a stage telling people how to obstruct ICE, tipping off people that ICE is looking for. And she needs to realize 9 out of 10 of everybody ICE arrested last year was a convicted criminal or pending criminal charges. Let me talk about a few. Last year, 137,000 criminals, 2,000 were murders, 12,000 sex offenses, 45,000 assaults, 62,000 drug offenses, 10,000 weapons offenses. And she wants the community to tip these people off. The ICE is in their neighborhood operating. ICE's job is already extremely dangerous. Now she's making it more dangerous. And she's one of these Democrats who keeps saying, no one's above the law. The president is above the law. We need to impeach the president because he's not above the law. But apparently illegal aliens are above the law because ICE isn't allowed to arrest them. It's a ridiculous statement.
Tom Homan, thanks so much.
It's a dangerous statement.
Yeah. Tom, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, look, they gave me 5 minutes to say a few things, so if I offend anybody tonight, I don't give a shit. How many pounds of fentanyl didn't make it in this country to kill Americans? How many known suspected terrorists didn't make it in the country? How many billions of dollars did the cartels make? President Trump is one badass president. He secured the border at the level we've never seen before. And I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that's been released into the United States under this administration. Don't get too comfortable. We're going to need some help. Do I have any volunteers that want to come back and help run the biggest deportation operation in the history of this nation? In January of 25, the greatest president of my lifetime walking back in the White House. He tells me we got, I say 120 days. He says, no, you got 60 to lock the border down. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I told the president. He comes back, I come back, we fix this shit.